Well, good morning. For those of you watching online, good morning. You all look amazing. At least the ones online probably do. I'm just going to assume. And I just want you to look at somebody and just say, welcome them to church. Tell them they look good. Tell them they look like they got a restful night's sleep. Man, there's just nothing like just looking at someone and saying, oh, you got a restful night's sleep. And then you're like, you don't know the half of it, right? But we needed that. And I'm excited that you're here today. And for some people that are brand new to the church, maybe this is your first, second time visiting, maybe this is your first, second time watching, welcome. We are excited that you're here, and as we close out this service, or this series, Resurrecting Hope, covering life's most difficult, challenging situations, I'm excited about what God might have to say to us in our lives. What God might be doing in our lives. And today we're going to be in the book of John. So if you wanted to go ahead and turn there, that's great. We've been in the book of John really this entire series. And today we're going to be in chapter 17. So I want to go ahead and encourage you to turn there as we look at the longest prayer that we have record of Jesus praying. John chapter 17 is really just an entirely long prayer of Jesus praying for his disciples. It was right before he gets arrested and tried, crucified. It's before all of that stuff happens. But Jesus is with his disciples in an upper room, and they're chilling out. They're having the Last Supper. They're eating. They're talking about what's going on in Jesus' life, right? What's about to happen, and Jesus starts going into this prayer, and that's what we're going to look at today. So in chapter 17, verses 20 through 26 is where we're going to be, and I want to read this together. And here's what it says. I am praying not only for these disciples, but also for those who will ever believe in me through their message. I pray that they will all be one, just as you and I are one, as you are in me, Father, and I am in you. And may they be in us so that the world will believe that you sent me. I have given them the glory you gave me, so they may be one as we are one. I am in them and you are in me, and may they experience such perfect unity. Those are powerful words. Perfect unity that the world will know that you sent me and that you love them as much as you love me. Father, I want these whom you have given me to be with where I am. And they can see all the glory you gave me because you loved me even before the world began. O righteous Father, the world doesn't know you, but I do. And these disciples I know, and these disciples know that you sent me. I have revealed to you in them, and I will continue to do so. Then your love for me will be in them, and I will be in them. It's a long passage, and maybe you have a Bible, and those words are read in that Bible. It means this is something that Jesus said, and we have a record of this prayer that Jesus is praying for his disciples. But I think in this prayer that Jesus is praying, there is a truth that is hidden that if we look closely, we'll find, but it won't take a whole lot for us to agree with that. And that is that disunity is a standard of our world, right? This disunity, this separation, disunity is a standard of our world. As Jesus is praying, he's praying for unity for his disciples. That way the people would see that and kind of be drawn to it, because we live in a world that is completely disunified. We're disagreeing, we're fighting, we're bickering at all times, all the time about everything, right? And so when Jesus is praying this, it's kind of this unspoken truth about the state of our world, the state of the fallen world that we live in. However, I think the interesting part is that's kind of what everybody's searching for, is that unity. How many of you guys have seen a bumper sticker that looks something like this? It's up on the screen. It should be coming up on the screen here in a second. Nope, not that one, the next one. There we go. Anybody ever seen something like that? This idea of like, let's coexist, let's all agree. And it's got all these world religions that people come into, these different beliefs, and they're looking for this unity of humanity, because I genuinely think people think that unity is the ultimate apex of humanity. That if we could just all agree, we would all be unified. That if our world would just agree where the borders are for each country, there wouldn't be any wars. That if our country would just agree in one political leader, then, there wouldn't be any problems. There would be no corruption. That if our school would just agree on this curriculum, then there wouldn't be any poverty, and we would produce amazing young new generations of people. That if our church would just agree on a mission, that we wouldn't have any disagreement. If our family could just pick a date for the family reunion, we could stop all group text messaging, And if our spouse would just pick where they want to eat, where they would want to go, there would be no more problems. And this idea that we kind of have that if we could all just agree, we would be in unity. If we could all just agree, then everything would be perfect. Today we're going to look at this prayer that Jesus prayed for his disciples. And as he prays it, I don't want us to miss the very first words that we read there. This isn't just a prayer that he prayed. He prayed this prayer for us. He prayed this prayer for you and me. The entirety of chapter 17 is a prayer that Jesus is praying for his disciples. And there are so many good nuggets of truth that we can pull out of that, and we can learn from that what Jesus is praying for his disciples for. But we can't take what he's saying and just apply it to us because he wasn't praying for us until we get to verse 20. And when we get to verse 20, that's what it says. I am praying not only for those disciples, not only for these in the room, not only for James, John, and Peter, and Bartholomew, and all these other disciples that were in this room with him. He's not just praying for them. He's praying for those disciples who will believe. And it says this, these disciples, but also for all who will ever believe in me. That's us. That's you and me. Jesus prayed for us. You ever got a text message or a phone call that just says, hey, I've been praying for you today? And it just warms your heart, and you're like, stop it, thank you. This is amazing. It just makes you feel good. Jesus did that for you. Jesus prayed for you and for me. And in chapter 17, he prays for a lot of things for his disciples. He prays for their protection. He prays for their joy. He prays for their safety. He prays for their holiness. And those are all the ones in the room. And then in verse 20, he prays for three things that are for us. He prays for unification. He prays for their association with him. And then he prays for their gratification, their glorification. And John wants to make it clear that he wasn't just praying for those in the room, that he was praying for you and for me today. And as Jesus prays for us, these are the things that he seeks for us. These are the things that he longs for us. These are the things, again, one of the most important prayers. This is right before he goes to die. And Jesus understands that. It's kind of like the last thing that he's saying to his people. It's one that we really should pay attention to, and he prays for that unity, that all the believers would be united, that they would be one. And the disciples got to be sitting there well, I wonder what this looks like. Have you ever thought about what is this unity that he's talking about? What does it look like? Because oftentimes we look at it as the agreement of something, right? When we can all just kind of move in the same direction. So I asked a volunteer to come up and help me. Some of you just froze for a second. You're he's not going to call me up on stage. Caden, can you go ahead and come on up here? Now, I have not talked to Caden. Give Caden a round of applause. He's a senior this year at Delaware Hayes, so come on up here. If you don't know Caden, you should. He is one of the most talkative guys in the world, so you should definitely go up to him after service. Is that right? Oh, yeah. But we haven't talked about anything that we're going to do. I just said, hey, can you come up and help me? And you're like, oh, shoot. And he did it, all right? So he has no clue what's about to happen right now. But here's what I want to do. So we haven't talked about anything. So I just want you to come on over here and stand over here with me, right? Just kind of right here on this line. Sound good? Yeah. I think a lot of times we ask the question what does unity look like? And we're going to try to, oh, good. He's good. All right, we're going to count to 6. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good job. Anybody out there know what half of 6 is? It took some of you a little too long. It's all right, ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Good job. Okay. Oh, getting a little aggressive. Maybe we should have went over some of this. All right, don't fall. All right, now I have a question for you. Give him a round of applause. That was awesome. He had no clue what he was supposed to do. We didn't talk about anything. Now, oh man, I just broke the stage. Don't fall off. Note for next service. All right, why did you push back?
Because you were pushing me.
Because I was pushing you?
Yeah.
But, so you thought that's what I wanted you to do?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Why did you step with me?
Because, well, I mean, you kind of just threw it. And I was like, oh, okay. And it was kind of fun.
Couldn't have put it better, man. That was those are true words right there. But like, whenever you sit there, I didn't tell you, we didn't do anything. I didn't tell you what we were going to do, and you just kind of naturally followed when we started to walk. And then whenever I started to push, what did you start doing? Give Caden a round of applause, man. That's awesome. You can go have a seat. I appreciate it. I think this idea of what unity is can be a great example that's found in this. So many times we just start walking. We start walking in the same direction. I didn't tell him what to do. I didn't do anything other than have a shared experience with him. And then when we shared an experience, he was like, well, I know he won't do it. Hopefully, he won't do anything terrible to me. Am I right? And we had this mindset that we were going to step together, that we were going to walk together. And as we walked across here, we were in unison. Like we were one. And we did this, and we didn't even have to say anything. I didn't tell him what to do, what not to do. He could have done anything. He could have ran off the stage at that point and just said, no, we're not doing this. But when I came alongside him, and we both were united in our thought, in our mind, we immediately did the same thing. Yet the second I turned around and I put my fists up and I got in a conflict position with him and I began pushing him, what was the natural thing that he did? He pushed back. It was natural for him whenever he started sitting there. We were in unison of mind. We were like, okay, we've got the same objective. But the second that I showed a posture of pushing, there was a disconnect that happened in the mind to say, you know what? He could actually push me over. He could actually run me over, run me off the stage if I don't do something, if I don't push back, if I don't give some of that thing. It's the self-preservation that really took hold of him in a very real way right here. We don't even think about it all the time. It's a natural instinct, and it's not just a natural instinct for Caden up here. It's a natural instinct for us in our relationships. When we are disunified, is that the right thing? When we are ununified with one another, we have a tendency to push against one another. And Jesus prayed for his disciples that his disciples would have the same unity that him and his Father had. The same unity that him and his Father had, that they would be one. Jesus prayed for that unity for his followers to be one. For those of you who are married or have a significant other or something like that, can I just ask you guys to close your eyes? I don't want to start fights here or anything. Just close your eyes real quick. Who wins in the fight? You, or point to the person that wins in the fight? When you guys have a fight. Okay, a few hands went up. Okay, put them down quick. Now you can open your eyes. There we go. All right, I saw some elbows going on right there. Like, who wins in a fight with your spouse? Here's my question. Who's supposed to win in a fight with you and your spouse? Man, when me and my wife, when me and Kristen get in a fight, there's something that kind of takes over where I just want to absolutely obliterate her. You know, like I am just going to. She hates that, but like I am going to win this. I don't even care if I'm wrong half the time, right? Like I start to recognize it and realize that I don't even care if I'm wrong, but I just want to win the fight. But my question is this: in a marriage, who is supposed to win? The wife. Man. Hope somebody's here today and heard that. But who is supposed to win in a marriage? We are a team. If she loses, guess what happens? I lose. If I lose, guess what happens? She loses. We both lose. But for some reason, when we start, when we butt heads, when we're sitting there and we get into this disagreement, it becomes a battle of wills of who's going to be more right, who's going to win. This idea of oneness doesn't come up. There's a viral video that I saw the other day, and I was like, oh, this is absolutely amazing. And this wife, she calls her husband, she says, hey, honey, do you remember that time when I got pregnant? And the husband on the other end is like, yeah. And you told everybody that we got pregnant? He said, yeah. You remember that time when I gave birth to our first child and it was beautiful? He said, yeah. And you told everybody that we gave birth to our first child and it was beautiful? Yeah. Well, we just dented the car in Target parking lot. I just want you to know. This idea that they were together, that they were in unity no matter what happened. They were together in this. It was an us thing because that's what marriage was created to do. It was created to be an example for the entire world of what true unity looked like. Two people, two different opinions, moving in the same direction because of a unity of mind, a unity of a shared experience that you were going through. And oftentimes I think we substitute this unity with agreement. As long as we can be in agreement with one another, we can be unified, right? As long as we have the same passions, as long as we have the same dreams, as long as we have the same political aspirations, as long as wherever the line you want to draw is, as long as we think the same, we're going to be in unity. But that falls apart really quick because unity isn't just agreement. It goes way beyond the agreement. Unity, if it was, Jesus wasn't in unity with his Father. If you remember, just right after this, Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane, and what is he praying? He's praying to his Father. He said, listen, I know what's coming. I know what's happening. I just want this cup to pass from me. I know this was your plan. I know you have this plan for me to sacrifice my life for these people, but if it's at all possible, let's do it another way. I don't want to do this. They didn't agree on that, but what did Jesus say right after that? But not my will, but your will be done. There was a unity of mindset saying, I know that you have the plan for me. I know that I trust your plan for me. I trust that we have this experience together, that we have this shared moment, and we are headed in the right direction, even if we disagree. You see, I think division is an opportunity for the divine. I think disunity is an opportunity for God to show up in our life. It's what makes the gospel good. It's this opportunity where we can be in disagreement with one another, yet still be moving in the same direction. Jesus even talks about it this. If it's just agreement, he even says, what good is it if you love somebody who loves you back, right? If you're loving somebody who loves you, anyone can do that. You're both going in the same direction. But how do you treat the people that you don't agree with? How do you treat the people? How do you move together with somebody that you're ununited with? Well, we can do that. Romans 12 tells us this. We do this by the renewing of our mind. Don't let God transform your thinking. You become a new person, and as we rack in our mind, as we start experiencing things in our mind, even things that aren't a benefit to us, even things that we wouldn't choose, even things that we wouldn't say, we start sitting there thinking, okay, are we in unity of mind? Because as we submit ourselves and our minds to God, He begins changing them. He starts having us focus on His good, pleasing, and perfect will in our life. How is someone's mind changed? By constantly exposing it to the love that Jesus offers. How is it changed? It's by constantly demonstrating before them that this is what I thought, but you know what? My thinking can begin to change. I've worked with teens for a long time, and one of the questions I get asked often is how do you minister to a group of people who know everything? Those who laughed have had teenagers. Because they do. They know everything. They've been through it all. You can tell them something that you just made up on the spot. They'll be like, yeah, I heard that before. It's like, no, you didn't. I just made this up. You don't know what you're talking about. But they know everything. How do we expose their minds to a new way of thinking, a truth that they might need? And I was at this conference, and the guy said it this way, and it's going to be up on the screen, and it says, do this, relationally, build a relational bridge that can handle the weight of the truth you have to bring. Build a relational bridge that can handle the weight of the truth you have to bring. Because I've never seen somebody who needed a bridge say, nope, not getting on that bridge. I've seen a lot of people, as they were building the bridge, yelling at the person who needs the bridge, saying, ha, see what you've done? See how you put yourself here? Makes them not want to get on the bridge. But as a youth pastor, as somebody who's worked with teens for a long time, whenever we see this moment happening in our life, we see the truth that needs to be brought into these lives, even these believers' lives. And what we do is we start with the truth and we start lobbing it, we start throwing it, and it creates this posture that I'm against you, and we begin pushing against one another, and the world sees this disunity, and they're like, wow, this isn't beneficial. This isn't something that I was looking for. This isn't something that I wanted. As Christians, we need to be more worried about what unites us than what divides us. And that comes through this unity of mind. That comes through the unity of thinking of the shared experience that we have in the direction that we're moving. The solution to the problem isn't to impose an artificial institutional unity that ignores all of our basic thoughts, that ignores all the things that we have, all the disagreements that we have going on, and it preserves the facade of oneness. It's to promote love for one another among genuine believers. I mean, think for a second with me. When Jesus is praying this is what he's praying for his church. This is what he's praying for us here today. This is what he was praying for the church 500 years ago and 1,000 years ago. This is what he was praying for us, that we would be united. Think of where he was when he was praying that. It was the Passover. He was in Jerusalem, where people had come from all over the world and they descended on this one city to celebrate together. These people that had varying degrees of understanding and beliefs of when and what they should eat and how far they should walk. And they couldn't even agree on some of the most basic things. And they separated themselves into different sects and different tribes, into different places. And in this one day, as Jesus is in the upper room, he's out there, he's praying this. Outside the walls, man, there was people from all over the place. There were people from all over the place with all different beliefs on what they thought was right and what they thought was best, putting aside their differences and celebrating the one thing that united them. Celebrating that there was a God who reached down in their slavery when they were helpless and who set them free from their bondage. This group of people who couldn't do anything for themselves, and they said, you know what? We might disagree on a lot of these other things, but what we do agree on is that there is a God who loves us, who set us free, who paid the debts that we couldn't pay. There's a God who did more for us than we could ever do for him, and he did it for us because he loved us. They couldn't even agree on who the Messiah was. He was sitting right there. But what they did is what Jesus did is he started praying for this unity, not of agreement, but a unity of oneness, that the people would see what his followers were like. What Jesus wasn't praying for here is unity of the world, is unity of everybody. He talked to us a whole lot about how we should love our enemies, the people who aren't saved yet, how we should show our kindness to people who don't know him. He talked a whole lot about that, and we know a lot about that. And he's not praying for unity with people who don't know him. He's praying for unity for the people who do know him, for the people who have accepted that, who have accepted Jesus into their life and said, you know what? There was a debt that I couldn't pay, that I was saved from, that Jesus paid for me, and I believe in that. And you know what? Whether we disagree on a few things or not, I want to move in a direction, the same direction as you, a unity of mind, having a shared experience together. And it was for the benefit of the world. It was for the benefit of the world. If you go right out here into this lobby right here, a lot of times people ask us, like, what's your mission? What's your vision? You know, all that stuff as a church, and you're supposed to have those things. And we do, and they're hanging right up there if you ever want to see them. But here's what they are. I mean, just about any church you go to, there will be some version of the Great Commission and the Great Commandment. You know, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and then love your neighbor as yourself, right? And if you go out here, there will be a third one, and it's found in Genesis chapter 12, and it's the promise of the blessing of Abraham, that Abraham's descendants would be a blessing to the world that they are around. That they would bless the people that are around them, that they would be able to see this. And this is Jesus' prayer here today, that his people, his believers, those who have been saved, those who have believed in him and called on his name would be so united that the world would take notice, that the world would watch and see, wow, they disagree about this. They don't agree about this, but man, they're still in unity. They're still one. And that's the beauty of the promise of Abraham, that we would be a blessing to the world. And as believers, what we can agree on, the second part of that is the vision of New Start, is that we believe genuinely, if we're going to be a blessing to the world, that the vision, which is you, comes out. That you would be able to ask you these questions and really support one another, and that you would be able to ask me these questions and say, well, where are you growing? How are you serving? Is your generosity expanding, and who are you reaching for Christ? That this is the crux of who we are, the people that we are, for the blessing, for the benefit of the world. That's what Jesus prayed. I prayed that you would protect them. I prayed that they would be one, so the people outside would look at that and see the beauty, not of agreement, the beauty of unity, and they would be drawn to it. Because that's what we're all looking for in any one world religion or any political leader or any country. That's what we're looking for, is that unity. But they think it's agreement. In verse 23, he says, may they experience such perfect unity that the world will know that you sent me and that you love them as much as you love me. Man, as a church, I just want to encourage you. I think there are people in our life that have a defensive posture towards us. Caden, come back up here real quick. I wasn't going to do this, but come on up. Band, you can come up too while he's coming up. Caden's going to sing a solo. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He's not. But what would happen? I want you to be me, okay? You're getting ready to push against me right here. You ready? What would happen if the defensive posture that we had with our believers looked like this? Push against me. Looks like we're dancing, don't it? There, you can go have a seat, thanks. It looks like we're in unison here. We might agree where the unity stops, because we've all had that experience of who it is. We might have our non-negotiables. We might have the things that we really are tied to, our preferences that we're really tied to. But when it comes down to it, Jesus prayed for us to be united in mind, united that God is good, united that, you know what, the small things, the small disagreements are not going to overcome what we see in the world. And so my question to you today is, who has a defensive posture against you? Who has put themselves up in a defensive posture against you in an area that has nothing to do with unity of mind, that has nothing to do with God as our Savior? It might have a lot to do with how you think someone should act or how you think somebody should think, but it has nothing to do with where God is taking us. This is how we can resurrect hope in a world that is dying to see it, by being in unison, being one with Jesus. Being one with one another to draw people for the blessing of the world. I don't want you to hear what I'm not saying. I don't want you to hear that everything's right. I don't want you to hear any of that kind of stuff. Oh, there's nowhere we can draw the line. That's not what we're talking about here today. But when we're talking about who God is in our life, when we are fighting with one another, with other believers, and that is the public view of everything that's going on, what we're against, we're putting up our fists and pushing against people. And the world is taking notice. Man, how exciting would it be is if instead of pushing back, instead of just shoving, instead of worrying about who we are, if the people that have a defensive posture against us, the other believers who have a defensive posture against us, who might feel like they're pushing, if we just started dancing with them. If we just started celebrating the unity that God has for each and every single one of us, that he wants us to display for a world. That's the heartbeat of Jesus' prayer. He reveals to us that he came to resurrect a world. This resurrection hope that comes from knowing that in the midst of a divided world, in the midst of a divided church, in the midst of divided religions, in the midst of divided denominations, it's not about the denomination, it's about the one-on-one. It's about you and me. It's about you and me right here. That we can trust that the love of God knows absolutely no bounds. Today we're going to close with, and we're going to sing Unstoppable God. As we do this, as we go out into the world, as we leave this place and go out into the world and ask that question, is there somebody that has a defensive posture against me, a brother or sister in Christ that I can build a relational bridge with, that I can disagree with, but still be moving in the same direction? It's an exciting, powerful, powerful tool that Jesus prayed for you and for me today. So let's stand and sing this together.